What's up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new CirMonopoly video. I know it's been a while, but today we're going to do something that I've never actually done before on this channel, and that is chess content. So, recently, a few months ago, I began getting into chess, and I discovered that I loved opening theory especially. So, today I'm going to be showing you a gambit that I have here, as it's playing while black. So we'll flip the board here. When you're black, you can play this gambit. Um, and I don't think anybody has ever named or talked about this gambit before. Okay, so it opens with the move e4, and you respond normally with e5. Um, the second most common move here for white, and the best move is knight f3 right here. So, right, looking from white's position, e4, e5, knight f3. And now in this position, there are several ways you can defend against this. Most people go knight c6 here. You can also do d6, which is called the Philidor defense. And the way you play this gambit, however, is with the Damiano gambit, also known as the Damiano defense, with pawn to f6. Now, Damiano actually did not use this defense or approve of it. He was actually the first one who developed theory to say that it was a very bad response, because now here white's best move is to simply capture the pawn on e5. And you might say, well, why is that so bad to just take it back? And because the best move here is, of course, queen e7. So if you take here, now the evaluation bar has now gone down about 3 points of material, even though you're up 2 right now. So this is insanity. This is also part of my gambit. And now white gives his check. Usually what you do here is you just move, and then you'd take, and then you'd have to move again, and then you would check again with the bishop, and this is a very, very bad position to be in. Right here it's mate in 11, so you actually have to, I think, block with the pawn is the only way you survive this. And you just take the pawn, so now you can block with the bishop. Obviously I don't think that's good. But anyways, the way you play my gambit is, after this check, you simply say, I'm not moving my king, I'm going to attack your queen now. So now the queen just takes the pawn with check, and this is actually a fork, attacking both your king and rook. So you're like, okay. And in my gambit, you block with the queen, which is the best move. Opponent takes the rook. You take the pawn with check, best move. Your opponent has played perfectly so far. The opponent slides over, best move. Now you go here, which is one of the best moves. And now your opponent will say, okay, let me see what's going on here. And this is for, very high level, like 1800s, that you would play this against someone who's a lot better than you, but you want to draw them. So it's rare that someone who'd get this position would lose as white. But I'll show you how you draw, and that's with the move queen takes g8. It's a very natural move. It makes sense. Taking the knight here. And obviously, you'll stake the pawn, but it's the same outcome. So really, no matter what you do here, and I'll get into variations in a second, but it's like this. I mean, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna take, or I'm gonna take, right? But obviously, most natural is just to take this. But then you give this check. Now you come here, and if you block with the bishop, it's mate in 1. So you have to block with the pawn. And now you make a brilliant bishop sacrifice. The opponent literally cannot move their king. Only block with the bishop, and again, it's still mate in 1. So you have to take, and you will take, forking their king and their rook, but this is completely fine, because you have a knight as well. So you're still going to be winning if after this move you were to do something like this, your opponent is up a minor piece worth of material. So in this position, what do you do now? After this, and you simply move here and give this other check. Well, what if your opponent moves here? Now you give this check. What if your opponent moves here? Well, you simply give this check. Your opponent is forced to move back, and you continue giving checks if they move here. Check again. Here, check. Here, check. Your opponent can't really go anywhere. But what they could do is, this would just be draw by repetition. Is after this check to block with the bishop. But now it's also mate 2. So there's a lot of traps. It's a lot, very easy for white to lose the game here with just one mistake. So you got to move here and then here, and now you can actually block with the bishop. It's completely fine. Now you just take the rook, and if you go here, it's black winning because you can take this with the check. The opponent has to go, probably to f3, and then you will start just developing your pieces, acting like nothing happened. They might say, well, can I just do this? And it'll just block, and so on. And, I trust the computer more than I trust myself. So, but anyways, right here, it's completely even. After you take, opponent can go here. Then you will go. This is bad. Do not do this. Don't start eating the opponent's pieces and think you're winning because you have the rook. Go here, check. And you can go here, and same thing. It's bad. You can go here. It's also bad. So a lot of mistakes happen here. But you just have to continue doing this and continue checking. And these are the only possibilities. And eventually, you'll just, lose on repetition if you don't get an advantage to your opponent. So best case scenario for white, well, like you might say, what if they don't take? What if after f6 they go bishop c4? And you might say, well, then here you want to go c6, knight c3, and this is kind of an interesting position here. But it really only, and you're still down a pawn and a half, so you don't want them to do that. But a lot of flashy players at 1800, especially 16 to 2000, will say, well, I know my openings, I know I can take that, and it's like, okay, and it's just like, yeah, straight up, this, then his move is it, what? And you all know the rest. So yeah, and then some other variations here. Obviously, I already discussed if they take the pawn instead, but it's like, what else can they do, right? Can they? Right, this is obviously still fine. Best move here is actually f3, attacking the queen, and in this position, you just move back to e7, and you kind of resign the game, because after takes here, you don't have anything, and you can't just sack your bishop. At this point, it just doesn't work. And unfortunately, you'll have to go bishop e6, queen h8, or obviously can't take, so the queen opens up this long diagonal with plenty of escape squares. I'll show you you can't go here, you can't go here. But you can absolutely go to this square, or this square, or that square. So that's 3 escape squares right there. And obviously, black usually will resign the game here. So it's a very dangerous gambit. I wouldn't recommend it at all. But another thing I want to show you is something very interesting that I thought nobody really uses is, obviously, St. Andrew's defense, like this. Or, sorry, St. George's defense, not St. Andrew. I don't know why I keep saying St. Andrew. St. George's defense. Um, with a6, and you can also do it with d4, the queen's pawn opening as well as the king's pawn opening, and the Retzi. But no one ever talks about it for the English, and in fact, it's actually, I don't know why it says 0.6 in favor of white. It's actually not that much, especially if you don't know how to play it, which a lot of people are confused by it. What I think is kind of amazing, is after knight c3, e5, knight f3, knight c6, so you're kind of getting into almost a 4 knights here, but now your opponent will go g3, you will go bishop b4, your opponent will go bishop g2, fianchettoing the bishop, and you will now go d6, your opponent, very principled, castles, bishop x c3, taking the knight, and taking back. And now it's saying it's only 0.4, and this game will end in a draw if played perfectly. Trust me, I've already tested that out. So it's pretty interesting, and a lot of times people will make mistakes here. They'll be like, what the heck? I'm just all right, taking more space in the center here. And then after e6, you're almost kind of setting up a reverse modern defense. Except, usually you would go d6 there. And in d6, you don't want to play d6. d6 is obviously 0.8 advantage versus e6 is like 0.3 advantage. Maybe 0.4. Bishop f4. Just straight out getting the bishop is the best move, but they might say, all right, well, if you're going to play passively, I'm just going to put 3 pawns in the center. Look at 2 of my squares are occupied, the other 2, the other 2 are occupied, pushing a lot of pawns. This one looking here, this one looking here, this one looking here. Look at all these squares that these pawns are controlling. Tons of central space. And this as well, just absolutely insane. So you will say, okay, d5. You're challenging the center, which is insane. Well, you're like, this is just a. It's stupid because I can just take, and after it takes back, you can trade this again. But here you should not ever take. You move out a knight. Any knight is fine. To d7 is fine. To f6 is fine, and to and bishop e7 I guess is also okay. But it's really interesting because you're like, okay, I'll just get my knight out now. And it's like, if they try and defend it, I'm not sure going here. You give this bishop b4 check, and the opponent has to block with a knight, and then you just take the pawn. You're like, what? What do you mean? This is not, well, because the knight is pinned, so you can't. It's completely even, because if you take back, this is just actually bad for you now. It's losing, because after this, it looks like it hangs the queen, but it doesn't because of this pin to the king. So you now have to go knight e2, back to oops, what? Oh, your other knight to e2. Sorry. Yeah, and this is just, slightly advantageous for black. I wouldn't say it's, black is necessarily better here, but, they have, some bishops, some pins, some pins here. They could always take, and taking is never really a bad option here. Second best move in this position. And second best move in this position as well. So as soon as you do this, even after they move here, taking is not necessarily the best thing to do here, but in positions like this, you can always take. And so that's how you play it with c4. Also, the Nimmo switch Larsen attack. I see so many people getting tripped up and absolutely fried in positions like this. Relating to the Nimoswitch. It's brilliant. It's insane, especially at lower level players. You know, like around like 800 to 1200. I see especially getting tripped up by this opening, and it's like, how do you defend it? You know, you can play the modern, or you can play the traditional. I guess they call it the classical variation. Or like, you know, you can do this, or you can go here, or there's nothing really bad. You can this is why would you do that? But there's not really a terrible move here, you know. But I think St. Andrew's defense almost with the Nimoswitch Larson attack as well is really good. And you might say, okay, a lot of people might go just c4. It's a classic move. I mean, you know, obviously you're going to fianchetto the bishop unless you're kind of a weird person. But you know, also looking at, you know, c4 ideas. So now you just go d5 here, and you're like, okay, and it actually is going to turn into something very interesting. Pretty sure in a second, because after c5, this is not really seen usually, and it's a perfectly reasonable opening as well. So after e3, knight c6, and it's like almost this is almost looking like, you know, a Sicilian a little bit, not really, you know, kind of a, you know, fianchetto variation, but I think, don't you fianchetto on this side in the fianchetto variation of the Sicilian? But now you see with this move, it goes from the Nimoswitch Larson attack classical variation to now the Retzi opening Sicilian invitation. And now you could go h3, or you could go g3. I think g3 is top computer move. D4 now, breaking over the position. Fianchettoing the bishop, going e5 here. This is very strong structure. Look, you're taking up central space. This bishop can go nowhere. It's and this is defended. This is defended. This is defended. This is defend. There's so many defenders on this pawn and in these central squares in your opponent's area. You know, your opponent's area here. Just absolutely, you're gonna be able to claim a lot of central space here and stop your opponent from making good use of their fianchettos. Obviously, this knight is not, it's not a very good knight. Can't do a lot. Yet, I mean, obviously, you know, in these kind of openings, you know, King's fianchetto opening and Nimoswitch Larson attack, you will always see things like h5 and knight h4 and knight a4. You know, not great in this instance, but is opening this and could be better in the long run for white. But I think this is the way to go for anyone that is feeling stumped by the Nimoswitch Larson attack. And obviously you can, you know, you can use engines to validate what I'm saying. I think what's interesting, I think, can't you play like this? And then your opponent goes c4, and then I think you go like this or something, and then after g3, you go knight f6, and this is a very interesting pawn structure. You might say, well, this is bad. This pawn structure is bad. My light bishop is useless. The light bishop is not getting out anytime soon, and my dark squared bishop can't go very far either. But this is only 0.4 for white, which is, if you go back to the first move of the game, the same as, you know, roughly the same as what white starts at. So that's not right. So I think it's really interesting how you can play some of these openings, and I think, well, I mean, honestly, you know, whether it's c4 or b3 or even, you know, a crazy gambit like this, I don't think chess opening theory is anywhere close to oops, anywhere close to over. You know, I think there's still a lot to be said, especially for some of these openings. And there you go. There's a draw right there, just so you can see it again. Yeah, so this is a bit of a shorter video for my channel and a bit of a uncommon topic, but I will be releasing more chess content in the future, as well as, ways to improve your game. And this is called the CirMonopoly Gambit, if anyone asks you. Like, oh, where did I learn that from? It's the CirMonopoly Gambit. It's like, it's extremely dangerous. Don't play it unless you want to, guarantee lose a lot of rating points, but if it works out, it feels really fun to play. So thank you for watching, and please don't subscribe. I have too many of those already. See ya.